This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Hi, everybody. This is Johanna Carroll, and I'm welcoming you to Dialogue with Divinity. It's my intention in Dialogue with Divinity to have great conversations with people I call the wisdom keepers. And these are the people that I've met throughout my 30 years of doing my work on the planet who are here to bring us wisdom at a whole new level, to really have us look at life through our spiritual glasses, as I always say. So today, it really is my great honor to welcome P.M.H. Atwater to our show. She is one of the original researchers in the field of near-death studies, which is really going to be what we're talking about today. And she began her work in 1978. She's written 15 books on her findings, and she really is considered to be one of the top-ranking experts internationally. We also are going to be talking about her most recent book, which is Dying to Know You, Proof of God in the Near-Death Experience. She considers this to be the people's book. It's a summation of the words of over 4,000 adult and child experiencers of near-death states, their experience, their truth, and their wisdom. The book itself consists of collective energy as far as intelligence, as the collective experience that they all had. You may even discover yourself in that book. There's really no other book like it on the market. PMH has so many credentials, it would probably take me an hour just to tell you what they are. But I will tell you that in 2005, she was awarded the Outstanding Service Award from the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and the Lifetime Achievement Award for the National Association of Transpersonal Hypnotherapists. She's got an honorary Ph.D. from a school in Sri Lanka. And beyond that, I'm just going to welcome her to our show so we can begin our dialogue and our conversation all about the near-death experience. So PMH, so nice to have you on Dialogue with Divinity. Thank you for joining us today.
It was absolutely fun. I enjoy doing shows like this, and I especially enjoy talking about God and divinity and spirituality and, fun.
So the book, I think a lot of people have a different perception about what near-death experience really is. Do you mind, just give us a quick primer for those of you who are listening right now who's not really sure what it really is. We've heard so many different stories.
Sure. The near-death experience is an intense awareness or sense or experience of otherworldliness, whether pleasant or unpleasant, because we do have some unpleasant ones, that happens to people who are at the edge of death. It is of such magnitude that most experiencers make significant changes in their lives afterward. The average near-death experiencer is without vital signs, that is to say, no breath, no heart, no lungs, for from 5 to 20 minutes. That's average. And of course, we know that you have to have oxygen in about, maybe 4 to 5 minutes, or we've got brain damage. Well, a significant feature of the near-death experience is there's either little or no brain damage. Rather, there's brain enhancement. You come back smarter than you were before.
That's really amazing. Does science support this, or science has got the vote out on it? They do.
Sure.
So I know, because a lot of your work, you've done so many clinical studies. So the brain, I know the thousand petal lotus of the brain holds so much that I don't even think we tap into very much of it right now. So you're saying that the near-death experiencer whether it's the oxygen, or is it really that the oxygen is unfolding those petals of awareness at a higher level?
No, not at all. In fact, we don't know for sure what causes it. What we do know in prospective studies that were published in Lancet Medical Journal is that the near-death experience, once you have none of these functioning, that is to say no brain waves, no heartbeat, no lungs, no breath, this kind of thing. Once all of that is offline and you are, for all extents and purposes, a corpse, you can still have out-of-body experiences. Once you get out of body, you have a 360-degree vision, and all of the experiences out of body that people have reported, and many of them have had third-party testimonials, and all of them that I know of have been verified. You have clear, enhanced consciousness, self-identity with emotions, cognition, which is thought perception, full use of faculties, and intact memories. So all of this is happening to a corpse.
You mentioned before, and I know we're going to talk a lot more about this in your book in the second part of our show, is that not everyone experiences this in the same way. I think there's this preconceived notion that, you're floating around in a cloud, God is there, you get your instructions and you come back.
No.
But it's uniquely different.
No. That's the media version.
Because you've had more than the
media version.
Yeah, because I know you've had your own near-death experiences,
yeah,
which you've shared with me.
Months. three months in 1977. Johanna, I look back and I call it the heavenly sledgehammer effect.
Wow.
Yeah, 3 months, that's the sledgehammer. And I really got it.
We're gonna hold that thought.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards, ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience Journey Trance, Power Animals, Helping Spirits, Sacred Space, and Life Purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back. This is Johanna Carroll. Our show is Dialogue with Divinity. And today we're speaking about near-death experiences, which, in my opinion, one of the world's experts, P.M.H. Atwater. So before we went to break, P.M.H., we were talking about your own, as you called the sledgehammer effect, 3 near-death experiences within a 3-month period. Is this really the catalyst that got you into doing, your life's mission work around the near-death experience?
Well, kind of, sort of. That's hard to say. Before I died, I was deeply, deeply into altered states of consciousness, ghosts, all kinds of psychic phenomena, biorhythms, meditation, anything you can name. I was doing it and teaching it. I come from Idaho. I started Idaho's first metaphysical corporation, nonprofit metaphysical corporation. I felt that my job was to introduce this kind of material, solid material, that had been proven in workshops, or at least verified to that degree that it could be, to bring it to the public. And this I did in a very, very big way, involved way over 3,000 people. And, I reached that sort of metaphysical post that many of us reach, or spiritual lamppost that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will come.
True.
And I felt like, I'd done it all. I'm ready now for a new teacher.
Oh, wow, you sure got one.
A person. I got deaf instead. So, whammo. And I can honestly say, with all of my background, it didn't make any difference except for 2 things. One, it enabled me to exist in any kind of condition or place without any fear, and it enabled me to not need an ego. I simply didn't need an ego. So in those 2 respects, it was familiar, but in every other respect, it was far beyond anything I'd ever heard of, seen, read about, experienced. I mean, it was way over the top. And, the typical near-death experience, or experiencer, I should say, takes about 7 to 10 years to integrate the experience. Some people say they do it quicker. They don't. They may think they are, but they're not. And it took me a year to get to the place where I was a human being again. One of the things we forget, Johanna, is that most near-death experiences come from violence or trauma.
Really?
Absolutely. Most of them come from violence or trauma. So you've got a body to rebuild afterward. This is not pleasant. And I was one of those. I had to relearn how to crawl, how to stand, how to walk, how to climb stairs and run, how to tell the difference between left and right, see and hear properly, and rebuild all my belief systems. And later that year, my first 2 happened in January of 1977, the third in March of 1977. Later that year, so we're talking October, November, I had 3 major relapses, one of which was adrenal failure. I was working with a blood pressure reading of 60/60, so I wasn't doing too good. So, it's hard to come back from these. I mean, some of them are quick and fairly easy. We've got basically 4 types of experiences. At least I was able to show that and establish that in my own work. The first one I call the initial experience because it's quick and there's not much to it. Maybe the individual will hear something like a friendly voice or a loving nothingness. They might have a quick in and out of body experience, and that's about it. That's it. But still go on and have after effects The second one I would call the hellish or unpleasant experience. In my research base, 1 out of 7. There's the heavenly or pleasant experience. We hear the most about that from the media, from books, from newspapers, radio shows. And then there's the transcendent experience. Very seldom is it ever personal. Usually has to do with history, things involving the human family, what one can do to make a significant change or difference in life for your fellow members of the human family. The ones that you have the life review in are the pleasant and unpleasant ones, heaven or hellish. You don't get them in the initial; they're too brief, too short. With the transcendent, once in a while you'll get one like that, but that's not usual. Most of them, excuse me, again, have very little, if anything, to do with what's personal. Again, it's that larger view of the human family.
So we're breaking these down into categories. Does this mean that these are sequential, or you can have one or multiple of these happening at the same time?
There's no such thing as sequential.
Okay.
Forget that one.
All right.
Yeah, you can.
So it's either 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's either the initial one, the hellish one, the heavenly one, or the transcendent.
People will have one of the 4.
Really? Interesting.
And some people have multiple experiences.
Okay.
The most in my research was a man who'd had 23 of them. He was in his 40s when I met him. He was in a wheelchair. He was not expected to live after birth. They expected him to die any time, and he did indeed die again and again, and as a youngster, and on throughout his life. And so I asked him, why did he think he had so many near-death experiences?
That's a good question. What did he have to say?
Well, he said they're my vitamin pill.
Interesting. So he looked at this. This is a positive experience for him.
Yes. It's what enabled him to keep going. Yep.
That is really fascinating. Let me ask you a question on a practical note. How do you find these people? I mean, I know you're obviously very supportive of the clinical research and study, and you're extremely well known and honored for that. So, I've personally had a lot of clients who feel that they've had a near-death experience. Some of them I think they have, and some of them I'm not so sure. But in terms, you're talking about 4,000 people that are in this book. By the way, the name of the book again, Dying to Know You, Proof of God and the Near-Death Experience by P.M.H. Atwater. That's what we're talking about today. So where do you find these 4,000 people?
I didn't have any problem at all the first 4 or 5 years. Let me sort of back up and give you a little bit of a backstory. In my 3rd near-death experience, I was, I won't say met by, but I would say a voice spoke to me during my experience.
Okay.
And it's a voice that I called the voice like none other.
Beautiful.
Because it was so big. It wasn't like an angel or a guide or guardian or any of that kind of stuff. It was bigger than that. It was a
you
voice
actually
so
heard
big.
you heard a voice?
Oh,
or you had?
absolutely.
Okay, you've heard this voice.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That massive voice. And the voice said, and I quote, "Test revelation. You
Beautiful.
are to do the research. One book for each death." It did not name book 1. It did name books 2 and 3.
Okay.
It told me what was to be in each one. It did not tell me how to do the work. So when I came back, well, hey, I'm a cop's kid. I was raised in a police station. So I used police investigative techniques as my protocol.
Okay, good.
And I began like some kind of, stupid newbie, newborn kid, because I left Idaho in 1978, and that's when I began my work. Crisscrossed across the United States, and then, was hard at it. And, it just didn't matter where I was. I would meet I'd turn around, they'd be there. I'd be on an elevator, they'd be there.
Right.
I'd walk down the street, they'd be there. They'd be there
Right.
in a taxi cab. It didn't matter. Let me give you an example. I was working for an internet company at the time for hotels and motels. So they sent me all over the country, especially from anything east of the Mississippi River. So all of that terrain was my terrain. And I could be sent anywhere. And this one particular time, I was in Macon, Georgia. And I had a coffee break. So I walked over to a nearby truck stop. And, they had a nice eatery in there. So I went in and sat down and ordered a little bit of food. And I was reading from a paperback, just minding my own business. I was at this little table and kind of in the middle of the space, just reading away. And this guy comes up. I swear he's as white as he is tall. Great big guy. And he sort of taps me on the shoulder and says, do you mind if I sit down there with you? And I kind of thought about it, and I thought, well, okay, go ahead and sit down. We'll share the table. And he looked me right straight in the eye, and he says, I want to tell you all about the time I died.
That's amazing.
And I want you to know that I still chase women, and I still drink alcohol, and I still swear. But I want you to know all about my death. And
That's
then,
interesting. Yeah.
There he goes,
So I think a lot of people would say, okay, law of attraction, she's got that sign is tied to her spiritual lamppost.
Well,
so I know that
what I finally decided after years of this,
okay,
and anywhere in the nation, after years and years of this, I finally decided that I must be wearing a sign on the back of my body that said, in just illustrated bright lights, tell me about your near-death experience. I decided that I must have been wearing this sign that only near-death experiencers could see, because they would seek me out.
They would recognize you.
And later on, I put some ads in some magazines and newspapers. Later on, I got some from talks, but most of them were through that kind of spooky, hard to describe, way of meeting.
I want to talk a little bit more about, because I think this book, all of your books are important. 15 books, that's a lot. This book, I know, sticks really with what people say rather than what we, would say, it's supposed to be this beautiful heavenly experience. And I know you and I have talked about this before. For lots of people, it's not. So why is that valuable to people to know these 4 levels? Why is that? I think we've got maybe another minute or so to chat about that, and then we're going to take a quick break. So just
I don't know that it's that much about the 4 levels, but also the pattern of physiological and psychological after effects. It's the after effects that validate the experience, not the other way around. And we can have near-death experiences. We can have near-death-like experiences. People who do not die, but seem to be in a situation where somehow a near-death experience is caused.
Okay, we're going to hold that thought. We're going to be right back.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl L.H.D, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Johanna Carroll. You are listening to Dialogue with Divinity, and our subject today is all about near-death experiences with one of my favorite people on the planet, P.M.H. Atwater. We're talking about her book. Oh, I'm not sure which one of you is here, but I know one of you is here. Dying to Know You, Proof of God in the Near-Death Experience. So P.M.H. has experienced herself near-death experiences, and obviously it gave her a whole new identity in the world and in terms of the quality of her work. So what we were just talking about is the after effect of a near-death experience. Do you think that people focus too much on, hey, I want to know what happened while you were over there, rather than I want to know about how it's changed your life now?
That's correct. Absolutely correct. And this is forced on us by the media, because they want to film documentaries, stories, even books and documentaries and so forth and so on. They want the drama of an afterlife. They want the drama of the accident and the person survives. They want all of that to, I suppose, improve their ratings. And so they don't really focus on or give you any kind of study of the entire phenomenon. For instance, in 1982, Gallup poll did a scientific study of near-death experiences and found that only 9% experienced a tunnel. And yet today we associate the near-death experience with a tunnel, where in fact only about maybe 25, 38, or maybe about 25% of the people ever have a tunnel.
Well, do they think is the tunnel supposed to be some glamorous thing that they can sensationalize? Why do they focus on this tunnel? That's interesting.
Because well, I don't know. I'm 9%. It's because it was different. It was new. It was
visual.
It was sort of like a wow factor.
Oh, okay.
You can trace the reports of a tunnel back to the time when the media sensationalized Raymond Moody's first book. So they took that part from his book and really sold it to the point that everybody now thinks that a near-death experience consists of a light in a tunnel. It consists of a lot more things than that.
Your 4,000 people that you have in this book, were there some common experiences that you saw? In other words, were there different, I don't want to say categories, but what were some of those experiences besides the tunnel that people were having?
Well, again, very few have the tunnel. Let me give you some case studies. This is one outside Portland, Oregon, late in October, the dark of the moon. Around midnight, the fellow was driving outside of town, out sort of in the hinterland. A lot of curves. There had been a little bit of a drizzle, and then all of a sudden the temperature dropped, which created what we call black ice.
Black ice, right.
And so this guy is driving around, midnight out there. He did not realize the road was icy. So he was going too fast for the road conditions, lost control of his car, smashed into head first, nose first of the car, right into a big, huge tree. His description is he floated up to the top of the tree. He looked down at the accident. He noticed that he had lost an arm. He noticed that it was bleeding profusely. And his decision was to save his body.
Okay.
So he looked around for someone where he could get help. And there was only one house, and it was a bit of a ways away on kind of a little ridge, 2-story house. The top right-hand story window had a light on. So he said he went over there. Now, I don't know how he went over there.
He didn't describe like I was floating. He just said he went there.
I went over there.
Okay.
And so he's outside of the window looking in. He sees a man in there. So he jumps up and down and screams. He said at the top of his lungs,
right.
There's been an accident, call the police. There's been an accident, call the police. Well, interestingly enough, the guy inside looked up at the window and saw what he thought was fog, and it was jumping up and down. He says, fog doesn't jump up and down. And then he heard this loud man's voice in his ear saying, there's been an accident, call the police.
So this man
right away, this guy goes to the phone and reports the accident. Of course, he doesn't know anything about it, but he reported the accident. He went downstairs, got a flashlight, went outside, and searched and searched and searched until he could find the accident scene. He was there when the police and the ambulance arrived. The guy was for all extents and purposes, dead. They were able to resuscitate him and save his life at the hospital. He lost his right arm. This is a right-handed artist. So that was a really big deal, losing his right arm.
Huge.
They could not reattach it.
Huge.
And he was blind. The accident blinded him.
Okay.
He had a lot of things wrong. He was in the hospital for 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months, he got his sight back. His sight came back.
Beautiful.
And so he asked for paper and pen. And the hospital staff brought that to him with his left hand now. He drew a picture of the accident scene. The police were called in. The guy in the house was called in. They looked at the picture that he drew. And as far as they were concerned, it was so accurate. It was as if a photograph of the accident scene.
And did he also draw a picture of going to this house with a light
No,
on, or
he
he
only
did
drew
not?
the one picture.
He
He only
okay.
drew the one
Of the
picture.
actual
Everything
event.
else is testimonial.
Interesting.
He just drew that one picture. The rest is all testimonial. But we get cases like that. For instance, I'll give you another one. This is a woman, I'm going to guess maybe early 30s. She's driving out kind of like farming land, and she comes to this intersection, and she doesn't see anybody in particular, so she's going to go right through the intersection. And a big truck suddenly comes up from the left and slams right into her. And dead on sight, able to get the police, ambulance there. They rushed her to the hospital. They were able to revive her. Now, in the surgical rooms, when she comes to when she revives, she's effusive. She's glowing. She's happy. She's effusive. She said, "I met my dad. I saw my dad, and he told me all about his death, and when he." And and where it happened, and he told me about that it was okay for him to die, that its time was up, and he'd done everything he needed to do, and he said to me that I have to go back because I haven't done everything I'm supposed to do. Well, she's so effusive that the doctors and the nurses can't handle her. So this one doc goes to the waiting room where the family is gathering, and tells them what happened about the dad. And they said, well, obviously she's hallucinating. The dad is in perfect health.
Still
One of them
alive.
had called him that very morning. There wasn't a thing wrong with the dad. So the doctor went back, told the gal, and she just became even louder and more effusive. So this time the doctor was a little put out, and he went back to the family and he says, okay, you get that dad on the phone right now, this minute. So everyone in the room started calling. Suffices to say, what they found out was that the father had died 5 minutes before the daughter did, in exactly the same manner as he had told her that he had died. I'm saying to you, Johanna, that's oxygen deprivation?
That's amazing.
Forget it.
That's amazing. I want to talk to you a little bit about this borderlands experience. People talk about the borderlands,
Yes,
where people
they
may go, but moving on. Is that what she had? Did she have a borderland experience?
No. She had a what would you call it?
She'd had a mystical experience with her father, who was giving her guidance to go back and continue her life.
A total near-death experience with all the trimmings.
Sure.
Except that, again, she did not have a tunnel or anything like that. She didn't have a life review either, except that her father told her that she had to come back. She had a job to do that she hadn't completed yet.
I hear that from a lot of people. Let me ask you a question about that, because I actually had a friend who she says that she said she's no longer in her body, that she had a near-death experience. She was in a coma for a month. The only thing she really remembered was, she didn't talk about a tunnel or anything. She just remembered this warm feeling, and she remembered, this is what she said to me, the only thing I remember was that God told me that I had a job to do and I had to come back. And I said, well, what was the job? And he gave me a message. And I said, what was the message? The message was that I'm supposed to tell the world how much we are loved. It was a very simple message. And I have to tell you, she never really got, so I said, okay, well, what are you going to do with the message? You're going to write a book, you're going to go talk to Unity Church, how are you going to do this? And she never was really able to accomplish that. And I felt like for her, she supposedly had this near-death experience, but the rest of her life, I have to be honest with you, was very sad. It was filled with a lot of disappointment, and whether it was like she didn't do her job, she didn't finish her mission or deliver her message, and she died suddenly of a heart attack last year. And I thought, wow, I think people have the impression that if you have a near-death experience, you come back and your life is going to be so much better and improved. And I have to say, hers wasn't.
No, the average is not.
That's wow, that's daunting then.
Our challenge, as near as I can tell, is to rebuild our lives in doing it in such a way that it's as if we become a new person.
Okay.
It's as if you become you become a new person. I was on my way to being a bank manager when this happened to me.
I can't see you doing that. I remember you telling me once that, and I don't remember which near-death experience it was that you had, that your daughter was not happy. She wanted her mother
back. Not at all. Very few families are happy. Very few. Let me tell you what Natalie said. My oldest daughter, she came to me. Remember, I'm from Idaho, so we're plain speakers out there. And she came to me in the kitchen, put her hands on her hips, and looked at me right in the face, and she said, "Well, you're friendlier now than you used to be, and I like talking to you.
Wow.
But you're not Mom, and I want Mom back."
Yeah.
Well,
we're going to take a little pause.
Never did find her.
We're going to take a little pause on that. We'll be right back. As host of Dialogue with Divinity, I am thrilled to join the X-Zone Broadcast Network and their growing number of affiliates. My quest for a connection to the divine ignited my successful career path as an international spiritual counselor for over 40 years, an author of 4 books, and well-known metaphysical educator. My clients call me their spiritual mama. So my job is to offer you a radio show to help you grow spiritually with wisdom and get specific tools from guests who are experts in their field. Tune in to Dialogue with Divinity and be part of the conversation with Spirit. My goal, your happy soul. For more information, please visit my website at johannacarroll.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who would like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
This is Johanna Carroll. Welcome back to Dialogue with Divinity, and our subject today, a very interesting one with P.M.H. Atwater, all about near-death experiences. P.M.H., your latest book, Dying to Know You, Proof of God and the Near-Death Experiences. Where can people find you, and how do they order this book?
They can order that book anywhere. Absolutely anywhere, or they can get it on my website, which is www.PMHAtwater.com, PMHAtwater.com. I have a little bookstore there that, if they get it from me, they get it autographed. But you can get it anywhere, absolutely.
Okay, and while everybody's listening, also for myself, Johanna Carroll, if you'd like more information about what we're doing on our show, you'll find me at johannacarroll.com. Okay, so back to our very interesting subject. I love the fact that you've done so much work with children. And I know in the book, I believe, if I am correct, you talk about the three major lights found during death and
the
afterward.
kids. Oh,
The
yeah,
kids.
the kids.
So what do they say about that?
Adults do too, but, lots of kids talk about this. This one light is very raw, it's very piercing, it's very powerful. It doesn't have any particular color, it's more of a radiance. The other light is a black or dark light. Many of them say it has purple tinges in it. There's something very warm and comforting and friendly and wise and healing about this dark or black light. Okay. And then this white light that most people talk about sometimes has gold or silver in it, but brilliant white. This light knows all about you. It knows your name. You can converse with this light. The children are very specific, though. They're more specific than adults are. They get right to the point and they say,
to the detail.
That dark or black light, that's mother light. And that white light or that bright light, that's father light. And both the mother light and the father light come from God's light. God's light is that raw, piercing, radiant light.
Do they use that word, God's light?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Are these children, most of these children have been raised in a religious background?
Well, not necessarily, no. Sometimes
then how do they know that it's God's light? I'm just curious. They just know that it's God's light.
They'll say God's light or a term that I would call God. Maybe in their culture they would, a little different, but still God. This idea of that one great intelligence, that one great being above and beyond all else. So, yeah.
And with the children, they're young children, I'm assuming. When you say children, what ages are we talking about?
Well, my first study was birth to the age of 15 years. In a couple of weeks, I start another one with a new group, and I'm going after the tiny ones now, people who think they had a near-death experience or something like it between birth and the age of 5.
Wow.
So I'll be doing that very shortly. I now have 102 people, 102 cases. So I'm going to study it as a lived experience because we're not doing that. We're not really looking at the living of it. And especially with children, this is so important. What I found with kids is that we get so mesmerized by out-of-the-mouth-of-babes syndrome that we really don't look at how that affects the child and how they grow up with it. And that, to me, is the larger story. So is it the larger story as far as a responsibility for the parent or, clinically whoever's dealing with these kids to give them a greater depth or better tools? I mean, what specifically is coming out of that not being insulted by these kids that are different, not being threatened by children who don't bond to them,
not judging,
being open by children who are suddenly very, very psychic, very knowing, very innovative, very creative, and they're scared by this. It's like, what's going on to my child?
Of course.
So the book on that is The New Children and Near-Death Experiences. There'll soon be another one. And then next spring will be another book, too.
Oh, my gosh, you're like the...
Well, remember, in my own experience, I was told to write 3 specific books.
That's right.
And the book one was not named. I think that was coming back to life, but it was not named. The second one was Future Memory. If you haven't read Future Memory, do. Because, again, it's not like any other book you'll ever read anywhere.
None of your books are.
Every sentence, every paragraph, every page is part of the math I used to create the labyrinth. The book is a labyrinth. Beautiful. Okay, the third one I just finished. It's just out of edits. It's now with the publisher. It is called A Manual for Developing Humans.
Wow, that sounds pretty profound, I have to say.
It is.
I think we're going to talk about that on another show, but I want to get back. Let's get back to your current book. Okay, so this is
sign up
something.
for my free monthly newsletter. You'll know all about this stuff.
Okay, so those of you that are listening, there's a free monthly newsletter. And again, we're going to go to your website, which is PMHAtwater.com.
Right.
So you talk about something that I've had, I don't know where I get the information from, but I do work with, these council groups on the other side of the veil. And one of the things that I know that people have a great fear of is that they're not going to be able to breathe after they drop their body. And I've always felt that the breath.
You get a big dose of that in Dying to Know You, Proof of God, in the near-death experience. So many experiencers, adults and children, one of the first things they find when they're on the other side is that it's breathing.
Mm-hmm.
There's breath over there. It's breathing. This idea of expansion, contraction, and contraction, as if all the universe and all creation were breathing. And the kids, I love kids, they just get right to the point. And they say, yeah, it's breathing over there, but not as your nose does.
That's
so
cute.
It's not the kind of breath we're used to in our nose. And,
right.
and if you go back to the original meaning of the word Holy Spirit literally means the breath of God breathing.
I've always had this sense that when, that people go through I'm talking about just the normal dying experience, not that anyone dying is normal, but there's that last breath, that rattle breath. And I've always felt like, okay, you're going to breathe that out. And guess what? You're going to breathe yourself right across to the other side. And that breath is still going to continue, but in a much more expanded way. And so I think people, they're afraid of choking to death or something like that. So the breath of God breathing. You talk about the idea of voltage.
Yeah.
When you talk about the light.
Yeah, when you're talking light. Adults describe the light on the other side of death as stronger and brighter than 10,000 suns. Instantly you're fried, but there's no pain. And children also talk about this. It's the idea that souls and anything connected to the other side really does have a voltage strength. If you today anywhere, if you're going to be a ghost hunter, you've got your little voltage meter.
True.
Because you're looking for those bleeps. That idea of voltage.
True.
It's the same thing when you're talking about death, and when you're talking about the soul. You're talking voltage. You're talking that particular light that is significant. It's nobody's made-up piece. This is real. This is physical. This is real.
So I know that, of course, one of the most ancient teachings in the Bible is the whole thing about the burning bush, and that man can really not look upon the face of God or they will be incinerated. Is it that kind of electricity that we're talking about?
Well, it could well be.
Yeah, I think that it might be. I know for myself, there was a project that was done that they brought a lot of psychics and scientists into a room and they hooked them up to all of these monitors and meters and whatever. And when they dropped down into theta and they went into that, magical state of samadhi, as I would call it, that the electrical voltage meters were going crazy. So I feel that there is an ability on some level to tap into that without being...
I just had mine measured 3 months ago.
I'm afraid to ask you how high it was.
Guess where I am when I'm doing most of my work, when I'm writing and putting things together and, I'm just really excited about what I'm doing. I'm in low delta.
Really? Interesting.
Low delta and low theta. When I want to go to sleep, I'm in alpha. When I'm playing, I'm in high gamma.
I know there's a lot, there's lots of things that have been written about these different states of consciousness, and we could go on and on and on and talk to you forever. So obviously when the new book comes out, we want to have you back, but I just want to reiterate to everyone that's listening, PMHAtwater.com is where you're going to find every bit of information about this amazing woman and her near-death experience research. She is a beautiful, lovely soul. And for myself, Johanna Carroll, you can find me at johannacarroll.com. So I want to thank you so much for being with us. It's been a great show. It's so interesting. It's just a fascinating subject to me. So I know you've got a lot more going, and I think your ever ready battery is really plugged in. So many blessings and heart hugs to you and to everyone that's listening. Bye for now.